Hello, Coupeville. Hi. Everybody who's standing up, if you wanted to sit down, please do so, but certainly welcome to stand up there if you'd like. The Coupeville Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with the Coupeville Historic Waterfront Association, would like to welcome everybody. So thank you all for coming, and I'm Scott Price. I'm with the Coupeville Chamber of Commerce Board, and I'm here with my partner, Sean Kelly, and he is the president of the Coupeville Historic Waterfront Association. And we have a number of people who have helped us make this possible tonight. I would like to point out that Barry and Kathy have helped us on the AV, Janet, Frank, Marianne, Dawn, and Matt, and a number of other people have helped make this happen. So thank you to everyone who participated in that. And also like to mention that our executive director, Linda Eccles, some of you may know, she's unfortunately in the hospital. That's why she's not here tonight. So we hope that you keep her in your thoughts and prayers.
She's home.
Yeah, she got home. Okay, thank you. So she's doing okay.
I need the cup.
So we are here with our two candidates, and that's the biggest thank you. Thank you both for coming here tonight. And the intent here is to learn more about them for the voters of Coupeville, and learn about what they're going to do or what they would propose to do over the next few years, and also their stand on particular issues that a number of people have informed us that they'd like to know more about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first start out with a bio on each of the candidates. These are bios that they've each provided, so you have a little bit of background in case you don't already know a little bit about them. And I'll start here with Molly. Molly has lived in Coupeville for 27 years and raised two sons here. She has contributed to her community in many ways during this time. First as a volunteer with the school district in many different capacities. Later with nonprofits that had meaningful goals that aligned with her priorities. She was an active member of the Penn Cove Water Festival for 6 years. She was on the Evie's Landing Trust Board for 8 years. She has been a Coupeville Lion for 19 years and was a past president. She has volunteered and been the president of a local food bank, Gifts from the Heart, for 21 years. She was elected and served as the Coupeville Town Council member for 12 years and has been honored to serve as the mayor for the past 8 years. As the mayor, she works with several community stakeholders and organizations on behalf of the town, such as the Chamber of Commerce, the Coupeville Historic Waterfront Association, the Council of Governments, the Economic Development Council, and Evie's Reserve, as a few examples. She has had the privilege of working with and working for all kinds of talented and interesting people in our town. And then also for Meg. Meg and her family moved to Coupeville in 2018 when they bought the Kingfisher bookstore on Front Street and started restoring the building and reviving the business. Today, Kingfisher is a thriving business that employs 8 community members, and sales have grown by over 1,500%. The store welcomes the community and visitors with author events and story time for children. Before coming to Coupeville, Meg worked in community news in Whatcom County for over 25 years, covering municipal and county government affairs, as well as junior taxing districts and federal border policy. She also served the community as a city council member in Blaine, a member of several community organizations, a volunteer environmental educator, and a foster parent. She served as a board member for the Coupeville Historic Waterfront Association for 5 years and is a member of the Coupeville Chamber of Commerce and the Coupeville Lions Club. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture from the University of California, Davis, and a Master of Science in Botany from the University of British Columbia. And the last thing I will go over here is basically the structure of what we're going to do here. So we received questions from the public before the event here, and we actually have more questions we have time for, so we've gone through, we've edited, we've refined, we picked the ones we thought that might have the broadest interest. Both candidates have agreed to stay afterwards, so if you have any questions at all that are not addressed, or if you come up with a new question during the forum, they're going to be here to answer your questions, so please feel free to meet with them directly. And the basic format is we will start with candidate one, and they will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and I'll be the timer. I'll give them a 30-second warning, and then kind of the buzzer at 2 minutes. They don't have to fill the whole 2 minutes. If they can answer more succinctly, great, but they have up to 2 minutes. Then candidate two will answer. Then the next question, candidate two will go first, and candidate one will go second, and it'll alternate back and forth like that. And at the end, each candidate will have 5 minutes to say whatever they want. That can be why you vote, why you should vote for them, or if there's something they wanted to talk about more than the 2 minutes they were allotted on the previous question, or a topic they feel that everybody should know that maybe wasn't addressed in the question. So it's an open 5 minutes for each of them. And the very last thing is just a request for everyone here in the audience. Please actively silence your cell phones if you haven't done that already, and we appreciate that. And this is a listening and learning forum, so hopefully everybody, I'm sure everybody will be respectful, but that's the intent, for everybody to be respectful here. And we would like to save the clapping and appreciation for the end for our two candidates, if you don't mind. So I believe we are ready to go. Our moderator, Sean, is going to take it from here. And thank you again for coming.
Meg and Molly, thanks for your time tonight. If you need me to repeat the question, just let me know. I've tried to go through and ensure that's pretty straightforward, and Scott will be behind as a timer, so he'll give you a 30-second warning as you get close to the end of time. All right, first question is for Meg. Why are you running for mayor? And if elected mayor, what would be your top priorities in your upcoming term?
I'm running for mayor because public service is something that's always been part of my family. It's something that's always been important for me. And when I came to Coupeville, I knew that I would look for opportunities to serve in municipal government. And I believe strongly in democracy, and our incumbent has not done anything that I take particular exception to, but has served 2 terms. And I thought it was time for someone else to bring some new ideas to the forefront. The biggest new idea that I will bring to the forefront is a change of administrative plan. I think Coupeville needs a town administrator that's separate from the mayoral role, which is something that's existed here in the past. In fact, when Molly took office, council took action to make the mayor a full-time mayor with administrative duties, and when her term expires, that item will be brought, that administrative plan will be brought before council again. So it's not a revolutionary idea. Hybrid governments are becoming more common in small towns as the regulatory environment that a town the size of Coupeville is working in the same regulatory environment that the city of Seattle is. They also face similar challenges. Sea level rise is happening to Coupeville the same way it is to major metropolitan areas, and a higher level of expertise and experience from outside the Coupeville environment is going to bring some resources to bear that I think the town needs at this juncture in its growth. Good, thank you. I like it.
All right, Molly, over to you. Why are you running for mayor? And if re-elected, what would your top priorities be in the upcoming term?
I am running for mayor because I also like to be an active part of the community that I live in. I have participated in the community for the entire time I've lived here. I think I get just as much out of that as anybody else. I get to work with and meet a lot of really fascinating and talented people in this town, people that care, people that want to get involved and be part of the solution. It's just a joy to work as the mayor, and I've been honored to do that for 8 years. I will be honest and tell you that I thought long and hard about whether I was going to run again for another term. COVID was really hard, guys, and it was all work and no play, and hard on the staff, and hard on our businesses, and hard on our residences. We didn't experience anything that you didn't experience. We got it all in town hall. We heard about it all. It was a hard time. But really this last year, it's been back to feeling like Coupeville again. We're back to our activities. we're back to everybody feeling relaxed and being healthy and being supportive of each other. And I just feel like I have another 4 years of energy and ideas and really honestly projects that have been started that I'm really excited about and I'd like to see them through. That's really the reason why I'm running. My priorities would be, several of them would be like working on, I've said before that I would really like to put some effort and some money and some community effort into our parks, work on our climate adaptability plan, continue to be fiscally responsible for our town and do the best I can with your tax dollars and our staff resources.
Thank you. All right, so this question will back over to you, Molly, so you take a breath. This is the part when you design this, you're like, okay, get ready. Yeah, coming right at you. So the next question is, again, if re-elected, what 3 steps would you take to put Coupeville on firmer financial footing?
I saw that question. That question stumps me. I feel like Coupeville is on incredibly strong financial footing. We do that in a number of ways. We are very conservative when we budget. We always underplan our revenues and overplan our expenses and still turn in a balanced budget. So we've never had any crises. While I have been mayor, we have implemented emergency funds for the general fund and all the utility funds. They're anywhere between $200,000 and $350,000 for each of those funds. Now that, $350,000 isn't going to solve a catastrophic utility problem, but it'll get us over the hump until we can deal with it. And something that maybe our community doesn't know is that Coupeville has an excellent credit rating and virtually no debt. So that we are in a great position if we have an emergency to be able to get funds to take care of it. If we have an opportunity, something fun, a piece of land, a resource that we want to purchase, we have the ability to do that because we don't overspend our means. We're very, very careful about that.
Thank you. All right, Meg, if elected, what 3 steps would you take to put Coupeville on firmer financial footing?
I think the first one, in going over the budget, and especially the budget policies, I've worked in a number of municipalities and different levels of government in partnership with budget development, and something that I think is often underplanned for are those emergency funds. And the fiscal policy for the town of Coupeville now, it sets the ending fund balance, which is pretty much what you're going to be left over with at the end of the year, and you want it to be enough to pay for your governmental organization to keep moving forward, faced with an emergency, faced with a failure to collect tax dollars, any and all of these things. And COVID was something that affected a lot of different towns in that regard. And so one of the changes I've made is to those fiscal policies and the revenue policies. Coupeville's $300,000 beginning fund balance, ending fund balance, depending on which side you look at, is $300,000, which is 11% for the general fund, which is 11% of the general fund. The government financial officer's best management practices suggests 12 to 15. So I'm not saying there's something wrong. I'm saying it needs to be looked at in that there are a lot of other factors that play into where you set your reserves and where you set your ending fund balance, what your taxation cycle is, whether you have sort of dips in your revenue, which Coupeville does. Sales tax goes up and down, though it does less, I think, these days. So that is one thing I'd like to look at. I'd like to also explore additional revenue streams. And this would be an enormous public consultation process. I think tourism should pay for tourism. And most tourists, what they pay is lodging tax and sales tax. And so I'd like to have some sort of public dialogue about whether we want to increase some of the tax streams that are mostly fueled by tourism dollars. That was only 2 things.
That's okay. I'm not counting. Yeah. Some people out here, I can guarantee you, some people out here are counting. So somebody's going to send you an email later for the 3rd.
Oh, I know.
Small towns are beautiful that way. All right, so this is going to come back to the first comments, and so this was the only question we received that was specifically for a single candidate, and we debated and talked about, thought was important to the campaign to hear this question. So the first question here for you, Meg, and then I'll have a corollary to it for you, Molly. So the question is, you have said that you think there should be a town administrator position separate from the position of mayor. If you were to win the election and town council does not agree with your proposed changes, are you prepared to serve both functions?
I think this needs to be put in context of how the administration of the town will move forward at the beginning of the next term. Whether the incumbent is elected or someone is newly elected, the newly elected mayor will take the plan, their administrative plan, to town council. So if I take the plan to town council, it drastically reduces the mayor's salary and funds an administrative position, they can approve it or they cannot approve it. Though it's unlikely, Molly will also have to go to town council and say, I would like to continue as a full-time mayor and absorb those administrative duties. They have the same possibility of saying, no, we'd like to go to an administrator now too. And would Molly take a part-time job? And you've got to roll with the punches. If town council at any point in time doesn't approve my plan going forward, I'll need to go back to the drawing board and work with council members individually, work with the community, and come up with a plan that everyone can agree on. One of my strengths is I'm a consensus builder. I talk to people and I identify what's important to them. I'm a very active listener. And I can pick out what it is that really matters to people that's keeping me from getting a yes. And so I'm really hopeful that I can put together a strong administrative plan, and if it doesn't get approved the first time around, I have structured my business, and I'm in a position to structure my business, that I will work however many hours I need to until I can get a plan in front of town council that they can get 100% behind.
Okay, Molly, do you think the current model of a combined mayor-town manager is the right model for Coupeville now and in the future?
Yes, well, obviously I'm gonna say yes. But I have reasons for that. I have to disagree with Meg a little bit. I think that our ordinance really does say that you have to go back to the town council with a town administrative plan when the mayor changes, when the person who is the mayor changes. And when that's the case, this ordinance was not written for me. This original ordinance was written back in 2006. And I was on the council then, and we were very careful and very intentional when we were writing it to protect the town, so that when a new person is elected, it automatically goes back down to a part-time job and part-time pay, with only like 8 hours required per week and the minimum requirements of the state that a mayor take care of. The reason we did that is because you can raise an elected official's salary when they're in office, but you cannot lower it. So if somebody was elected that wasn't qualified or didn't want to work full-time or couldn't work full-time, if we didn't have that protection in there, we'd have to pay them a full-time salary for the 4 years they're in office. So we were very careful not to get ourselves in that situation. I think that, I'll tell you honestly, when the mayor before me had worked full-time, when I became mayor, that was a big change. She'd been the mayor for 20 years. I worked for the first year at full-time at very part-time rate. I wanted to prove to the council, and prove to the staff, and prove to the community I would be worth a full-time salary, and I believe I have done that. I think being a full-time employee makes me a better mayor, and I think being the mayor makes me a better full-time employee. I am much more available to meet with our partners, work with our stakeholders, be available to the community, and just know what's going on a lot more. Nice. Fancy.
That's the beauty of a small town, the elegant cutoff. Scott, we did not discuss that. Nice improv. Okay, here we
I just
go.
appreciate there's not the bucket of water.
Hey, as long as there's no chairs thrown, I'll be happy. Okay. All right. So back over. No, let's see. I lost track of my I'm back to you, Molly.
Okay.
Next question. So we're going to shift, with the chamber's focus, we had a number of questions related to the business and business district. So we have a group of questions that will sort of talk to some of the business issues here. This is a high-level question. What is your preferred...
Sit up straighter.
What is your preferred balance among local business, tourism, and residents?
What is my local, what say again?
Your preferred balance. So how do you think about tourism, taking care of residents, and local businesses, serving the needs of those different constituent groups?
Well, they all have different needs, and as the mayor, you have to make sure that you're serving them all to the best of your ability. You can't put all your focus and all your resources into one area. Another reason I think the town is financially stable and in a really good position. Our economy is in a good position for a town our size. Yes, we do have a lot of tourism-related businesses, but that's not all the business we have in Coupeville. We have a lot of service-related businesses, healthcare businesses, because we have the county and the hospital and the school districts here. We have a huge job base in our town, a huge amount of jobs available for such a little tiny town. Sales tax does account for about 1/3 of our revenues in the general fund, but something to know about that is one of the biggest sources of sales tax is construction. So having the hospital, the jail, the schools, and the county, one of the four of them is always doing a construction project. And so we get big bumps of sales tax income during those times. And we use that money. We don't consider that we're always going to have it. We don't hire a bunch of people. We want to make sure that we're sustainable. And so we put it away or spend it on a project. I think that the mayor's job is to balance the needs of all three of those groups, our residents, our businesses, and our visitors. And it's tough to do sometimes.
Thank you. All right. I'll ask you the same question, and you can clarify how you wish, Meg. Okay.
I pushed it around my bag.
What is your preferred balance among local business, tourism, and residents?
Yeah, I think what catches me off a little bit there is preferred balance, as if the question is asking me to select a ratio of those three items that might somehow create an ideal community, and I don't think that's the case. I think that balancing the needs of all three groups is critical to the mayor's role, but also recognizing the connections between all three groups in doing so. Just a quick example, we have a retail bookstore on Front Street. We have a tremendous number of people who come into our bookstore, which is some people consider tourism, because they're visiting Coupeville. Tourists to go to the hospital because their husband, they live on Camino Island, had a heart attack, so that's business, tourism. Residents, we have residents who bring their families down. Sometimes those residents are bringing their families because their son-in-law Josh is in the jail and they're hanging out at the Coupeville Inn for a while. Bottom line is they all work together, and the links between them are part of balancing their different needs. So again, that was a funky question, but I don't think that you can set preferred levels of either. They all have very different needs. They also share a lot of their needs. Public safety, any one of those sectors has a strong need for public safety. Community marketing, maybe one more than another. And affordable housing. Again, these different groups have different needs, and you need to balance them and respect the connections between them as well.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder, I'm the voice of the people. I'm not quite a parrot, but in some cases, I'm reading them as they were written, so, okay.
Don't shoot the messenger.
You can take it out on me, that's fine. It's okay. All right. So back to you, Meg, if you're ready for the next question. Take a deep breath. Here we go. In light of the recent fire that decimated the historic district in Maui, what would you do as mayor to prioritize protection of Front Street as well as other historic properties in town?
That is going to start with a strong fire department and emergency services. And so the bottom line is that I support the fire and EMS levy, and so that's, to me, a good place to start. You need to have a strong emergency services. You also need to have incredibly strong communications between those emergency services. Where things really fell apart in Maui is the people weren't talking to each other. And an advantage that we have in Coupeville is the neighborhood emergency response team is community efforts to be prepared to respond in the case of an emergency, which trains citizens. So you just add layer upon layer upon layer of preparedness. When it comes to the historic structures, they are close together and they are wood. And so my biggest concern there is to ensure that the fire department and emergency planning, even on the county level, there's a county emergency planning department, have knowledge from other communities where they have put fire attack plans in place for wood-on-wood proximate structures, because those plans already exist. You just need to know that in your community, people are aware of those plans, they've trained to use those plans, and but that, if I want to stress anything, it's communication between those agencies, from county, state, all the way down to our local firefighters.
All right, Molly, are you ready?
Yeah.
In light of the recent fire that decimated the historic district in Maui, what would you do as mayor to prioritize protection of Front Street as well as other historic properties in town?
Boy, I'm sure we all thought about Front Street when we were watching that on the news. It was just couldn't have been more similar. And it is scary. I remember there was a little fire in a pizza restaurant on Front Street, and just, even a little tiny thing, it was put out immediately, but it is scary. I'll tell you some of the things we do when working with our fire department, and specifically for Front Street. When we made the change, when we installed the Gray Street Parklet, before we even discussed it, we brought the fire department down and said, if we're closing this access on Gray Street, what does that do to fire protection in the area? And at that time, it was Ed Harton was the fire chief, and he came down and evaluated it with his staff and told us that they could get to the buildings they needed to get to, and if all else failed, he could move our little planters with his fire truck. So he wasn't worried about it. We again brought the fire department down when we made the change in traffic flow to Front Street. Jerry Holmes actually brought a fire truck down to Front Street to make sure you could make the turn, to make sure you had room to get all the way around. And then again, brought the fire truck up into down Grace as far as it could go, up into the rec hall, and explained to us how they could hit all the buildings on both sides of Front Street from many different directions with the equipment that they own. We would need a quick response, obviously. The buildings are old and they are wood, and it would require a lot of effort on everybody's part. We do have the neighborhood emergency teams, or NET we call them, highly trained group of volunteers that just really know what they're doing in this town, a role model in the state actually, and so they they know what to do, they know where they can help, they know where to jump in, and our public works crew is very well trained in dealing with emergencies.
Great, thank you. Okay, back to you.
Okay.
Do you think our business districts, Front Street, North and South Main, are healthy and successful? And if not, what would you do to change that?
I kind of addressed that a little bit when I was talking about, I think we are a very healthy town. I think because of the diversity in our town. When it comes to business, like I said, we have a lot of diversity with job opportunities and different industries, healthcare, school, education, law and justice, government with both the county and the town, our tourism section of town, the place where visitors go most often. A lot of services, grocery stores, really sad, things like losing the lumber store. I think that's a big loss for our community, and I really hope we can work to hopefully get back a hardware store that's a little bit more, goes more to serve the entire community rather than just contractors. That's a loss to our community. I think that you can tell Coupeville is healthy on both North and South Main and Front Street because we have very few vacancies. And when we have a vacancy, it's filled almost immediately. People want to do business in Coupeville. People want to be here. We are busy with visitors year-round. We're busy year-round because of the year-round jobs we have at the county and the hospital and the school. Those bring a lot of people into town who also shop at our stores and eat at our restaurants. I really think that we are pretty healthy and well-rounded for the size of our town.
Thank you. Meg, do you think our business districts, Front Street, North and South Main, are healthy and successful? And if not, what would you do to change that?
I think that one of the challenges I have to admit that I speak to this somewhat as a retailer, because I am. And one of the things that is a challenge to business owners from the retail sector's perspective in Coupeville is that it's somewhat fragmented. You have Front Street, and then there's a chunk in the middle of Main Street, and then there's Prairie Center. And so Prairie Center, we have the lumber yard, and I too share Molly's hope that we can bring another business in there. But I often have wondered if we had better connections between these areas, would businesses in these areas all thrive more together? An example, someone will get off a boat at the Coupeville Wharf and will say, where can I get a gallon of milk? Prairie Center. Then you try and explain how you can get up there with the transportation system, or could you walk? I know that something that really improved connectivity that benefited a lot of businesses was Island Transit had its little loop from the ferry, which I'm glad I found out today is likely to run again next year. I'd like to see some connectivity solutions be put in place to connect these three business areas, which are somewhat diverse, but all serve different needs of the community and visitors and visiting workers. We have visiting healthcare workers in the county, so that's that middle section of Main Street. But I agree with Molly. Coupeville is financially thriving, and I think will continue to do so. But we could boost that by connecting those business areas more effectively to pedestrians.
Great, thank you. All right, it's coming back to you, Meg.
Okay.
All right. The town is completing a growth management planning cycle now, and quickly we'll turn around and begin the 2025 growth management plan. Why is this important? And what would you do as mayor to prioritize getting codified into the 2025 plan?
Not super understanding codified.
In the plan, what would be your priorities in the planning process? Is that more
I
clear?
think
Okay.
the biggest, that Coupeville was out of compliance with the Growth Management Act, struggling to get the comp plan updated. The last major update was 2011 at Broadville, Mayo. Last night, they approved the 2023. The reason we had to turn around and do it so fast is we were out of compliance for a good chunk of time. Being out of compliance with the Growth Management Act isn't healthy for any community. It limits funding, it limits grant opportunities. There's all that chunk of it. And so a big priority for me was don't miss that deadline again. By 2025, we need to make sure we have an update and it's ready for council approval and to forward to the Growth Management Hearing Board if need be. So that would be a priority. I think this cycle, this huge revision of the growth management plan, identified some areas that planners want to address moving down the road. And some of those include, things that they got pretty solid in this plan, but that are things that you can put some more effort into as you move into that next revision. I know Parks and Recreation was something that Donna talked to me about. Affordable housing. There are a lot of different ways to address affordable housing while protecting community character. And I know it's an enormous priority for this community. So that's something else I would see as something to focus on. The sea level rise assessment, by the time we get to 2025, the sea level rise assessment will hopefully have been followed up by an adaptation strategy, and some of those elements dealing with sea level rise and our response to that can be possibly written into the next comp plan.
Thank you.
I know.
Okay, Molly,
Mhm.
I'll skip the prelude and go right to why is this process important, and what would you as mayor prioritize as part of this planning process?
Okay, the comp plan process. The comp plan is meant to be a 10-year plan, and it is to help towns not only make their own plans, but work with their counties and work with their surrounding municipalities so that we're all kind of moving in the same direction when we can, and to support each other's goals. It was so nice to have it finally approved last night. Donna Keeler, as I'm sure most of you know her, she just did a wonderful job. I feel really, it was called an update, but it was a complete rewrite. We just did pretty much every single element over. I feel really good about it because we had a lot of public participation in that planning process through the whole 3 years we worked on it. So I really feel like it represents our community's values and our priorities. We knew that we had another update due in 2 years. We already have 3 different grants totaling $295,000 to help us with that update. And we knew going into that, we worked and worked and worked on the comp plan. At some point, you just have to say stop, knowing that you have an update in 2 years and we can go into more depth in some of the areas that we want to. Some of the areas that we want to elaborate in the next update are our Park and Recs section. Really looking forward to working on that with our community. That'll be a lot of fun. We've been hearing a lot of ideas, and we've been putting some money away, and we want to do that work. We want to go into a little more depth with our preservation element, because that's really important to Coupeville, being in the reserve and having the beautiful buildings that we have. We're going to be working on that with the reserve by upgrading our design guidelines. We want to do a transportation study to look at safe transportation and multimodal transportation. And 3 areas that we're required to update from the state is housing, climate, and critical areas. Oh, I have to stop.
Okay, well, you get to keep the mic, so you'll just have to talk about a different topic now.
Okay.
Okay, next question is, what is the duty of the mayor in accelerating the protection of our shoreline with Penn Cove, and also particularly improving the physical shoreline protection in our commercial district on Front Street?
Okay, Coupeville has about 2 miles of shoreline. It is mostly privately owned. It's private property with either homeowners or businesses. The town does own Town Park and the wastewater treatment plant, 2 very critical resources to the town. Wastewater treatment plant is basically at sea level. So when we did the sea level rise study, we were very interested to get information on all of our shoreline. And all the different areas, and the data is different for the different areas, as you can imagine, whether it's at sea level or high bay. There's different opportunities and different problems. So we did the first sea level rise study to get a baseline of data that we involved our community in, and we're happy to share that with our community. I think this is the first way the town can help with this process, is by taking on some of these studies and hiring experts to get ideas for adaptability, ideas to fix areas or protect areas, so that individual business owners or individual homeowners don't have to go to that expense. There's no reason for everybody to be out doing their own thing when we can work together on it. So the next step, and we have money for it, we have a grant for it, is to do I don't know what we're going to call it, climate adaptability plan. Where again, we will bring in experts and they will look at the data we have from our sea level rise, they'll look at our town, and they'll give us ideas and best science practices about ideas of how to protect different areas based on what the problems are. I think our responsibility is to work with the private property owners and do whatever we can to help them. It is taxpayer dollars that we're using, and we have to be mindful of that.
Okay, thank you. Meg? What is the duty of the mayor in accelerating the protection of our shoreline with Penn Cove, and also particularly improving the physical shoreline protection in our commercial district on Front Street?
I'm gonna pick on one word in there, which is accelerating. Climate change and the effects of climate change are doing that, are accelerating. And I think it's important that the town make every effort to accelerate their own efforts to put tools in the hands of private property owners and to address potential risks and put in place adaptation strategies on publicly owned properties. The wastewater treatment plant was definitely identified as a risky property when it comes to sea level rise. And that's a facility that serves all of Coupeville, so it needs to be right out front as a priority. And by having an adaptation study and putting a strategy in place for that, one of the things that I think is an important role for the town and the mayor is if the town is out front putting together a protection strategy for a publicly owned property, the wastewater treatment plant, they will be working with regulators, they will be working with all sorts of different agencies that are going to have a role every time a private property owner is looking for their own solution. So I realize that a public agency, that the town can't be spending tax dollars to protect the Kingfisher bookstore. However, what town staff learns in putting an adaptation plan in place for their own properties, specifically the wastewater treatment plant and town park, I think that the town needs to be really proactive in sharing that with property owners and making sure that those property owners have as much support as we can give them and as many tools as possible in protecting their own properties and working together to protect something like Front Street, like something like the waterfront district, which will require a coordinated response from the town and all those property owners working together.
Great, thanks. Okay, back to you, Meg. Sewer and water are always a concern on the island. How will you plan for our future needs in these areas?
By planning. The town has just completed a water system plan. As far as I understand, the sewer system plan needs to be updated. Those are enterprise funds in the town. Those are utilities that ratepayers pay for a portion. It's not all taxpayer dollars. And because of that, they have different planning needs, but they also have access to different funding sources. So yeah, this is going to be a real short answer from me. Utilities need planning. They need long horizon planning. They need long horizon budgeting. They need strong ending fund balances. And they need to have a planning window that looks at 20 years and that takes a wide variety of factors like climate change and the effects of climate change in when those plans are put in place. But yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. All right, Molly. Sewer and water are always concerns on the island. How will you plan for our future needs in these areas?
I talk about utilities a lot. I know it's not sexy or exciting, but I do believe
I
that
love them all.
it is the number one responsibility of the town, I believe, to our residents. You gotta take care of your sewage and you gotta have clean water. We've done a lot in the 8 years that I've been mayor to make improvements to both of those utilities. With a partnership with the Navy, we built a $5 million brand new state-of-the-art water treatment plant that treats our PFAS and PFOA down to non-detect. Not a penny was charged to our ratepayers, and there was long-term planning involved in that. It was sized to accommodate 40 years of growth, and it was also sized to add additional treatment to the plant because there's going to be changes in state regulations, and we know that. And there's going to be other chemicals in that family that we have to deal with, and we don't know how we'll have to deal with it yet. So we built in room to be able to do that when that time comes. Our sewer plant, surprisingly, I'm very impressed by this. It was built almost 30 years ago, and it was sized out for 40 to 50 years of growth. So we're still okay with our little sewer plant. It doesn't mean that we won't be in the future. We're looking at very interesting things to do with that plant, like instead of discharging treated water into Penn Cove, treating it to a higher level and bringing it back over to the prairie, either for agriculture or recharge into our aquifer. We just replaced a mile of water line with a $1 million FEMA grant. We're really good at getting grants for infrastructure, really good. And in the meantime, we put chunks of money in our utility budget every single year and roll it over so that we can accumulate it in order to do some bigger projects or use it for matching funds for grants, which we've just been very successful with. We do plan for 10 years out with our capital projects.
Great, thank you. All right, switching gears, we've got a group of questions now on partnerships with other entities. So obviously, Coupeville has a lot of overlapping entities, so we had a long list of questions, and we picked the top few that I think people will be really interested in broadly. So the first question is for you, Molly.
Okay.
How should the mayor engage with Navy Region Northwest and the command structure of NAS Whidbey? And what is your position and approach for working with the Navy on OLF jet noise specifically?
Jet noise specifically. Well, I will tell you, because of the PFAS situation, I have had a close personal relationship with the last 3 captains of the Navy base. It's pretty unusual. I don't think Coupeville would have had that kind of relationship under normal times. I'm sorry that I had to have it because of that, but because we were able to have a really good partnership, have trust in each other, work together for the benefit of the community, not finger pointing, not name calling, not focusing on the contamination that had happened, but let's focus on what we can do to fix it. And we were very successful in do that. We will continue to work with the Navy on a more general ground cleanup of that. The cleanup is not done. They're not just going to treat our water and leave. They're planning to, this will be a long-term circular project of cleaning up the groundwater so that they'll clean it up and then they'll put it back in our aquifer to recharge it. Noise, honestly guys, this is where I fall down as a politician, because I'm just going to tell you honestly. Coupeville is not going to change the Department of Defense. I see my job as mayor to keep the best relationship I can with the base commander, to be invited to his leadership functions, to know what they're doing, to know what their priorities are, and to keep a civil, respectful relationship with them. Doesn't mean I'm not happy with what's happening, but it means that when you have that kind of relationship, you can get little things done. You can get them to continue not to fly on the weekends. You can get them to continue, they don't have to do that. They continue to get them to try and not fly late on Friday nights. They've been slipping a little bit on that. The jets and the flights and the noise are a fact of life on this island. And I agree with all of you. These new growlers are louder than any planes we've ever had, there's no question. I have to stop. I know.
That's my cue.
I saw
Okay,
his stop
Meg.
sign.
There you go, Meg. How should the mayor engage with Navy Region Northwest and the command structure of NAS Whidbey? And what is your position and approach for working with the Navy on OLF jet noise specifically?
I would say, first of all, that the United States Navy has impact from their operations everywhere they operate. They have a duty to mitigate those impacts as feasible. And I think as we saw with the water, the contamination situation in Coupeville, as feasible and to the extent that they could there, they did so. There are going to be other situations, and noise from aircraft is one of them, where they will say that is not feasible. And I think that what's most important is that the mayor of Coupeville and the municipal government of Coupeville not get on one side or the other of what is a really contentious issue as far as it inflates that. The future of the OLF, whether there should be growlers here at all, that's a debate that I think town hall needs to stay out of specifically, so that that good relationship with the naval commanders region and at the base can continue to be maintained and even expanded upon, so that if there are small suggestions one could make, they will be taken in a friendly way rather than from a point of contention. Because honestly, Molly put it best there. You're not going to change the Department of Defense. And in addition, the Navy has a mission in our country, and that the Navy is carrying that mission out through NAS Whidbey, which is located at the north end of this island, and there will be impacts from those operations. And that I really just don't see a strong role for the mayor of Coupeville in telling the Navy how to run its business.
Okay. Next question. This one, Meg will start off.
Right, Jeremy?
What are your thoughts on the upcoming creative district designation for the town? And how can the town help to make it a success for both locals and visitors?
My thoughts on the creative district are, woohoo! That's a summary. I think the creative district is very close to approval after a tremendous amount of hard work and visioning from some very committed people in a town that supports a lot of creative, the term I think these days is creatives. A lot of creative people are creative, and they're a tremendous asset to our community. They not only bring visitors here, but they enrich the quality of life of every resident. The fact that we have an amazing fiber arts festival coming up, all of these different pieces working together improve quality of life. We have a number of festivals, and even a festival that's supposed to be about mussels has art, has creativity. It's one of the signatures of Coupeville that makes it thrive. And the creative district will allow these different, the Pacific Northwest Art School is of course central to the creative district, and it brings so many amazing people to our town, and this will allow them and the creative district to access funds, to access programming that will bring nothing but richness. How the town can support that is to be not just a partner, but an active partner and a creative partner for the creative district. I am fully expecting that there will be some nifty ideas that come out of that process, and I think the role of the town is to sort of roll with that. If we need to change the rules, make the rules, I think that kind of adaptability is what will allow a new designation and that new district to thrive.
Great, thank you, Molly. What are your thoughts on the upcoming creative district designation, and how can the town help to make it a success for both locals and visitors?
I'm also very excited about the concept. It is a state-sponsored program with proven benefits to economic benefits and tourist benefits to towns that have that designation. The town has been very supportive up to this point. We have been an active member of the committee that has worked on an application. Our planner or our assistant planner have been very involved in the process. I'm sorry to say though that we did turn in our application and it was turned back to us. So it was a long time to get, and a lot of people worked really hard on that application. So it was turned back to us from the state, and now we were asked to do some more work, and so now the group is back together, and they're committed, and so everybody that's a stakeholder is committed, so I'm sure they will work on it again. I was originally told back in 2022 that one of the requirements for to become a creative district was to do a large project. And none of us really knew what that meant or what that was. So I stuck $5,000 in the budget, hope to be able to finance, because the stakeholders don't really, at that point, didn't really have financial resources. So we put, the council approved $5,000 in the budget just as a placeholder in case the creative district needed some financial help to get this application done. They didn't so far, but I've put it back in for the next year's budget, again, to be able to financially support them. So with staff time, with money, enthusiasm, promotion, and I just look forward to seeing what they do and hoping that the town can participate with them and be a good partner throughout the process.
Great, thank you. Okay, this one's back to you, Molly, if you're ready. What should the mayor's responsibility be to represent the needs of our businesses and residents with respect to the state ferry system?
Man, oh man. State ferry system does not like Mayor Molly. I am in constant communication with the Department of Transportation, advocating for our ferries. I am I'll be honest with you, at the beginning of COVID, when everything fell apart, I was their biggest cheerleader. They asked me, Department of Transportation asked me to moderate debates for them. I was such a fan and supportive and being positive and saying, go guys, you know, you can get this done. After years of bids going, votes not being constructed, funding falling backwards, staffing problems not being improved in any significant way, I have just now become a little pain in the neck to the Secretary of Transportation and specifically to the ferries, the ferry advisor, the ferry committee. Along with the council, I have their full support. I have gotten our Council of Governments really involved in this subject, and now they are all on board with it. As a matter of fact, we met with our legislators this morning for Council of Governments, and the purpose was to talk about our legislative priorities, and they made us all decide on 3, and ferries was number 1. So I like to really point out to the Department of Transportation that I think people think that Coupeville is the squeaky wheel just because of tourism, and the ferries are important to tourism. But I want the Department of Transportation to know ferries are not a tourist attraction. They are critical to our way of life. We need them to go to doctor's appointments, to visit family, to get to jobs, and now more people are not being able to work at home anymore. So important to the base to get down to Bremerton. We have 3 ways on and off this island, and 2 of them are ferries. So for emergency preparedness, it's critical.
Thank you. Meg? What should the mayor's responsibility be to represent the needs of our businesses and residents to the state ferry system?
I have to agree with Molly that loud and engaged is important. I want to say though that it's not Washington State highways the ferry system is an integral part of Washington State highways, and as such, the government of the state of Washington has a duty to maintain them to a usable standard. And so I think this is something where Molly mentioned working with the Council of Governments, which is representatives from different governments and different levels of governments on the island. But there are a lot of other counties, there are a lot of other councils of government that are dealing with the same issue, because it's not only the Port Townsend Ferry, in my estimation, seems to get kicked a little bit harder than some others, but other communities are being unlinked when the ferry system isn't functioning at the highest level that it should. And as part of the state's highway system, it absolutely should be functioning the same as any other highway, except that it's maritime. And so it's one of those things I think that governments since COVID have found a lot of silence from the Department of Transportation. There have been a lot of things that have fallen down. I think it's probably time, and I think this approach is effective. It's time to take it up a notch. I would start talking to the governor's office. I would start talking to federal officials, because federal dollars for transportation projects in the state of Washington depend on the state of Washington fulfilling its mandate to maintain its highway system, and the ferries are a part of that highway system.
Thank you. So this is for you, Meg. Which groups would you like the town to
Doesn't he have a
focus?
calming voice?
This is the intent. No chair throwing on my watch.
Is that a voice on a spacecraft?
Yeah.
An elevator.
Which groups would you like for the town to collaborate with more? And it can be governmental, nonprofit, citizens groups, and why?
I think the town is part of Edie's Landing National Historic Reserve, and as such is already part of what is a historic collaboration. The partners that come together, and also Coupeville, the town is it says on the sign, is the heart of Edie's Landing National Historic Reserve, and that collaboration, I think I want to put out there first. That collaboration needs to be strengthened and fed and grown continually. So I'm not going to rattle all the groups off, but I think that is a critical collaboration that the town needs to consistently be putting energy and attention towards. I think that Coupeville also has a number of really strong, resilient, smaller organizations. There's the Coupeville Historic Waterfront Association that I served on the board of. There's the Chamber. There are a number of really active service organizations. And one of the challenges, I think, is with a lot of, there's the museum, I'm going to forget them all over the place, but with that many different active, committed groups, that the town can be somewhat of a hub. And something that I'd like to see moving forward is that the town put together working groups that bring together these different organizations that have interests, so that instead of everybody going through town hall with their ideas, everybody, for example, like with the Johnson lot, everybody sit down and work together in an expanded collaborative effort.
Thank you. Okay, this is good. When the timekeeper is not paying attention, you're under the buzzer. Awesome. All right. Okay, Molly, here we go. Yeah. He's just cool under pressure. So Molly, which groups would you like the town to collaborate with more? Governmental, nonprofit, citizens groups, and why?
Wow. I think our small town has fabulous partnerships, just at every level. Locally, we have great relationships with our 2 state representatives, Reps. Shaver, Paul, Congressman Larson. They know what the priorities are in Coupeville. They know what we're doing here. They know about our ferries. They know what's important to us about our transportation, other transportation issues. We have great partnerships with nonprofits. 2 that instantly spring to mind because we've had such long-term relationships is the Coupeville Garden Club, who maintains a lot of our parks and the rec hall and our flower baskets, and the Coupeville Lions, who will come with big projects like working on a commercial kitchen here, or for their centennial project they came and asked if they could completely redo the kitchen shelter in town park. I said, sure. Sounds like a great idea. And so we worked together. The town did the roof and they did everything else. And then of course we do have ongoing meetings just as the nature of a government. You know, the Economic Development Council brings together representatives from all over the island. The Council of Governments that I meet with monthly brings together all the municipalities on the islands. So, you know, our business associations, our festival associations, our 3 big festivals, work very closely with them, and they don't just bring money to our town, and visitors, they bring back, shine a light on our culture and our uniqueness, our muscles, our Native American history, our arts and crafts. There's just, I cannot tell you the number of meetings I go to with partners. It's really fun as the mayor when you're doing that, because you get to see trends and you get to see things as they develop. You get to see priorities change in the town, or when you see things becoming a priority. Oh, we gotta stop.
Thank you. Okay, so the next group of questions are, we actually had quite a number and it was hard to distill down, so we did our best to come up with a question or 2 in the areas of safety, security, and livability. And so, Molly, you'll be first up on this question. What steps do you think our town mayor should take to improve public safety? And there were questions related to theft, homelessness, even the deer. So,
You're throwing all of that into one question? Oh my God.
General, yeah, I would say.
Homelessness and deer.
Yeah.
That's not.
Public safety.
Okay, let me just do public safety. Okay?
Great, do public
I
safety.
could talk for an hour on the deer.
Yeah, we knew that.
Let me just say that every year I send out an annual update on the deer page, education. That's all I can do on the deer is do education, because there's nothing else to do about it. Public safety, that is a huge responsibility of the town, whether it's maintaining our roads, Keeping on top of that, keep making sure that our drinking water is safe, making sure that our sewer plant is running safely. We've already discussed our NET group, which is just an amazing group of people that the town sponsors. Really a model for the state. I can't tell you, Eric Brooks up in Island County comes down and drills with us. Oh, we just had 2 drills, one in September and one in October. The one last week, there's a bunch of new 911 operators up in Oak Harbor, and they came and asked if they could drill with our volunteers. So the supervisor up there brought all of her 911 operators and used our drill as a training for her people. You know, the obvious, the safety of the sidewalks and the trails, and that's all important. It's crosswalks, crossing lights. We've gotten grants to put solar-powered crossing lights at the elementary school and the hospital. Just public safety is just a constant thing that you have to stay on top of and look for. And we get a lot of information from our residents on that. A lot of times our residents will be the first to see a problem. I also think that you have to talk about our police department. As you all know, we contract with Island County Sheriffs. We have 2 full-time officers at all times, and they really practice community policing. They know who the homeless people are in our community. They know who the people are in our community by name with mental health issues and addiction issues, and they deal with them one-on-one. I believe that's why we don't have, I don't want to say we don't have a homeless problem, but we deal with them one-on-one.
Okay, Meg, what steps do you think our town mayor should take to improve public safety, theft, and homelessness are topics that were submitted, but feel free to generally comment.
I think that people often look at public safety as specifically fire, EMS, and police, but it's a much bigger question. And if you just look at it as policing and emergency response, you're not really looking at the whole picture. I was sort of, in the list of questions that you sent, one of them was, what should the mayor do about homelessness in Coupeville? And my response initially was, whoa, it's not a Coupeville problem. That's a national problem. That's an international problem. And Coupeville has a role to play, but the biggest role that the mayor can do is to know who all the other players are. If you're looking at the issue of homelessness, there are more than a dozen different agencies on Whidbey Island that offer services to homeless people, that can connect homeless people with people who can connect them with services. And so having that information in the hands of the town marshal and sheriff's deputies who are committed to community policing and who have that breadth of knowledge, that way you're connecting your local public safety efforts with the larger question, because they pretty much always are. And the other, I gotta say something about the deer. I've been campaigning for quite a while here, and I get a lot of questions about deer. So I went and I investigated birth control for deer. And it's like $1,000 a doe per year if the Humane Society does it. So I don't know, I didn't want this particular forum to end without sharing that piece of information.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question that was submitted by Linda as a special question for you all. So in absentia, I'm going to ask this on her behalf. This is a question she wanted to ask as a closing question for you both. And so we'll start with you, Meg.
Okay.
What is one question or topic we have not talked about tonight, and why is it important to you?
Oh, good question, Linda.
You're first. Yep.
I think that the thing we really haven't talked about tonight, and that's tremendously important to me, is public engagement. I spent a lot of years as a journalist, and I have seen communities where, like this one, no one goes to town meetings, and even if you're watching online, you can click, there are 3 people there. And I've seen municipalities where the council chambers are routinely packed with people, not that they have a lot to say, but that they want to know, and that they feel committed, and that they feel like strong stakeholders in the process. I'd like the town of Coupeville to try and develop that kind of feeling amongst the voters. One of the reasons I ran was for this to go on, so that the voters, citizens, and the larger community, because Coupeville isn't just what's in the town limits. To me, I envision Coupeville as the wider net of the reserve, and to be constantly inviting the people of our community to be part of how we make decisions, to bring occasionally kooky ideas like darting deer for birth control and letting the mayor say, okay, we'll take a look at that, or okay, let's talk about that. One of the things I'd like to see is in a number of communities, the community of Birch Bay in Whatcom County was unincorporated, but had a strong population and some real growth issues it wanted to deal with. And so they had charrette after charrette after charrette, and they had such a good time. It's something that they still do on a regular basis. They all go to the community hall, they put white paper up, and people write down questions, and other people write down answers. Those big throw a wide net efforts to engage the community, I think we can do better, and I would be really excited to be part of that.
All right, Molly, the question from Linda. What is one question or topic we have not talked about tonight, and why is it important to you?
Okay, will you just be, I think it's weird if I want to talk about deer. I get what you're saying, because when I was running for mayor the first time, I didn't have an opponent, but I still went out and doorbelled. And hands down, the only thing people wanted to talk to me about was deer. That's all they wanted to talk about. By about the 30th home, when the guy says, what are you gonna do about the deer? And I looked at him and I go, well, I guess there's nothing to do besides kill Bambi. He lost his mind, he freaked out. Everybody wants you to do something about the deer, but not really. And so I think Meg has not read my annual deer newsletter, which goes out every single year. I have looked into birth control. I have looked into the $7,000 sterilization procedure that a company in Iowa does. I have looked into the Washington Fish and Wildlife really cool hunting program, which we could do in Coupeville, only with the agreement of property owners, and we don't have that, which doesn't surprise me, and I kind of don't want hunting in Coupeville. So really, I mean, I think honestly, since I put out that education piece every single year, talking about what we've looked at, why Fish and Wildlife won't help, talking about our deer, the reason we have so many is they never stray beyond 2 miles from where they're born. I don't get the questions and I don't get the comments anymore. So too much talking about deer. I think I want to just say, if I would say anything else, I think that the town and the council and the planning commission and our staff do a great job with communicating. Seems to be a big complaint though, and like to, if anybody has ideas of better communication, our newsletter is our best source of communication, goes to 1,100 homes every 2 months. So you don't have to go to a website, you don't have to make a phone call, it comes to you.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I appreciate both of your diligence and sticking within the time limits. So this is your chance to make some closing remarks. So this will be the final question, and then we'll have opportunities for folks to meet with you one-to-one. So you'll have 5 minutes each to make your closing remarks, to tell people why they should vote for you, and to address any other comments from prior questions that you felt like you wanted to spend more time on. And so, Molly, in the back and forth system, you will be first up to go with closing remarks.
Okay. I have written out some things. I will look at them as I read, because I think I think this has been a really well-rounded set of questions. Thank you very much. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of areas. I want to thank the chamber and all the volunteers, and especially the volunteers that stepped in to help Linda out when she had her health crisis. She has a lot of devoted and people in this community that are devoted to her as they should be. So I appreciate her though starting the idea of letting us have a live debate when the League of Women Voters continues to be virtual. I just want to say I'm very proud of the work that I have accomplished with the town staff in the last 8 years. I feel like you've gotten your money's worth out of me. I can go over, I think we've gone over some of the bigger accomplishments we've done. The new water plant, increased parking by 60 spaces, consistent and constant upgrades to utility and streets, and we partner with state and federal agencies all the time, both with expertise or with getting funds. We partner with the county on our street work to get more work done for our money. We have a lot of really strong partnerships. We have not only completed the comp plan, we've done a lot in the last 8 years to get us up to speed with long-term planning. The comp plan, the water plan, updated the shoreline master plan. We have updated the sewer plan, and we've conducted the sea level rise study. We look for, planning is you never check it off the to-do list. Okay? It's ongoing, it's constant, short-term, long-term planning. You have to update your planning, you have to go with the flow, you have to be flexible, priorities change, climate changes, things happen. You just have to constantly be looking at your long and short-term plans and making sure that you're heading down the path that you hope you are. We made significant investments this year in our town software, which both improves the security of the town's database and also provides way better customer service. Y'all can pay your water bill with credit cards now. Lots of people are happy about that. We continue to make emergency preparedness a priority in town with our net group. We've assembled a stock of emergency supplies. Something you might find interesting is that when COVID hit, little tiny Coupeville provided the hospital with N95 masks. The hospital didn't have any. We had thousands of them. We've got an interlocal agreement with the hospital to set up an emergency shelter when the heat gets high. Most importantly, we have outfitted every single lift station and town shop and rec hall in every facility we own with permanent large generators so that we can be ready for a certain amount of time. We're going to be on our own on an island, and we have to look at those issues. I want to say, I talk all the time that we get grants. I want you to understand how significant it is. In the 8 years I've been mayor, we have received $9.6 million worth of grants. Okay, that's more than a year's worth of our budget. It's like a free year of expenses. It is significant and it's ongoing. Our department managers are excellent at not only getting grants and managing them, but taking care of their tax dollars. They take it very, very seriously. We all do. I think future priorities in no particular order, and I want to say that clearly as a little town, there is no order. There is no order of priorities. You're working on everything all the time. Things rise to the top and fall down. You start on something and you have to put it away and come back to it later. That's just the way it goes, and we are all pretty good at doing that. I've already talked about Park and Rec, really excited because it's time for a fun project. Comp plan was hard, sea level rise was hard. It's time for a fun project that we can all work on together, and it's a priority for our town. So I'm looking forward to doing that. We've done a lot of long-term planning, but we need to continue. We need to take the next step and do our climate adaptation plan. Figure out what are some different options for us. What do we need to look at? What should be our focus? What should be our top priorities? And everybody thinks of the shoreline as the climate problem. We have stormwater issues in town. That is a result of climate change. We need to look at those things too. I'm excited with the groups I work with, Woodby Camino Tourism, on looking at different ways to bring tourists in. I guess I just need to say that my goal is always to make the best decision I can for the most people in town within our financial resources and with our staff resources. And I will continue to do that for you if you re-elect me.
Thank you, Molly. Okay, Meg, please take the last 5 minutes here
Last
to
5
close
minutes.
out your remarks and why should people vote for you and anything else you'd like to add from tonight.
I'm deeply invested in Coupeville. This is my home. This is where my business is. And it's a community that I fell in love with by accident after going to an elected officials training in Mount Vernon. Brad said, hey, let's go look at the Lovejoy Inn, because we were looking for a business that we could run together in a place that we wanted to live. We wanted to go back to the small town, small communities that we had lived in when we were raising our kids before we got a little bit, our communities got too big, 10,000 people. We came to Coupeville when it was the greening, and it was amazing, and we met all these incredible people. And then the next day we were walking down Front Street and there was a for sale sign on this falling down building, and Brad looked at me and he said, a bookstore? You want to do a bookstore? I said, yeah, I can do a bookstore. I had never run a bookstore before. I learned the book business on the fly. I had no experience in the book business at all. And I took a fallen down building and a failed bookstore to a place where now Kingfisher Bookstore is a thriving, growing, community-forward business that I'm proud of. I think what I'm trying to say here is if you do elect me, is there a learning curve? Absolutely. Do I learn fast? I bet I do. And I bring a really strong skill set from a lot of years watching small communities from the other side of the notebook, as well as participating in a smaller way in town government. So I bring a lot more skills to the table as your mayor that I brought to Kingfisher Bookstore as a book business professional. And I'm pretty confident that I can do a good job. I think what Molly and I don't differ on a lot of things. I think we both really care about our community. We're very invested in our community. We try and make thoughtful decisions. Possibly I wouldn't say the most important, but a significant difference in our platforms is that I think we do need a town administrator so that the mayor is a position. If I serve 4 years, maybe you want to run for mayor next time. And it can be something that is part-time, that it's not a career. You're not running for your job, you're running to serve, and someone takes on more of those administrative tasks because it is their job. And the mayor is a position that you run for out of a desire to serve, not for a paycheck. I think that's important to me. I think a full-time administrator will also bring a lot of skills and experience that it's hard to get in a small town. And Coupeville has I've spent a lot of time on the phone with the City Managers Professional Association. I can't remember what all those letters stand for. And there are a number of people who would love to end their careers in Coupeville. People say to me, Meg, you'll never get someone to come to Coupeville for what your budget can afford. I think we can. I really think we can. And I think it will be a more flexible form of government that will allow a higher level of participation from the public, because you don't need to be an expert in order to serve your community. You don't need to be an expert on anything to be an important part of town government, whether it be as a council member or as mayor. You need a commitment and you need strong leadership skills. And ultimately, to me, leadership is about listening. It's about listening to community members when you disagree with them and they disagree with you. It's about listening to staff members when you think their idea is nutty. But listening all the way through, listening actively. And listening to all of the stakeholders, even when you don't share their priorities, because there are a lot of different priorities, and whether or not you agree with someone's priorities, you need to honor their voice. And you need to listen completely to what they have to say to you. Building a team of people with experience and skills and knowledge at town hall and really listening to them. Because the more information you have, the more you're able to work towards decisions that are based on consensus and really comprehensive knowledge-based information. I'm a really good listener, and I build really good teams, and I think I'd make a really good mayor for Coupeville.
Okay, thank you. You can all clap now. So, thank you both. That was amazing to hear the perspectives, and the town's lucky to have two great candidates for mayor. For all of you that submitted questions, just again, we'll provide the complete summary of questions that were submitted, and hopefully we did a good job of consolidating and getting to the themes that you care a lot about. The candidates will be here. We'll share the full list with the candidates as well as Linda, because there are things that are very specific that I think it's important that you all know about, and the candidates will be here for the next half hour for you to ask individual questions. Yeah. So keep the energy up. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.